In the cradle of civilization, where two great rivers defined the world, the story of a mighty empire began with the flow of the Tigris. Before they were conquerors, they were farmers and merchants, clinging to the fertile banks, surviving in a land that offered no natural defenses. From the dust of northern Mesopotamia, the city of Ashur rose. A fortress of earth, built not just— Ashur was more than a city. It was the divine heart of a people who believed their survival depended on the favor of the heavens. Trade became their lifeline, connecting the mountains of Anatolia to the plains of Sumer, weaving a web of wealth long before the sword was drawn. But prosperity drew the eyes of envious neighbors, and the mountains held threats that gold could not buy off. To survive, the city had to become a fortress. The open plains taught them a harsh lesson. In these early days, their weapons were simple, their ambitions local, yet a hardening of the spirit was already taking place. Their god demanded order. Their god demanded growth. To expand the land of Ashur was to serve the will of the divine. They saw themselves as the center of the world, a solitary island of order surrounded by the chaos of untamed lands.
The climate was unforgiving, forging a people who were resilient, disciplined, and accustomed to hardship.
Leadership transitioned from mere administrators to warrior kings, men who understood that peace was only a pause between conflicts.
The first armies were not the legions of legend, but the seeds of a military machine were being sown in the heart of the city.
Order was maintained through the written word. Every bushel of wheat, every weapon, every prayer was accounted for.
As the Bronze Age waned, a new era approached. The city of Ashur waited, poised.
The world changed with the discovery of iron. While others clung to bronze, Assyria embraced the stronger, deadlier metal.
Iron was plentiful and hard. It allowed them to arm not just the elite, but thousands of soldiers, creating a force unlike any before it.
Discipline became their greatest weapon. The Assyrian army was a single organism, moving with a terrifying unity of purpose.
They revolutionized the chariot, turning it into a heavy, mobile platform that could shatter enemy lines like glass.
The archers were the rain of death, capable of darkening the sky with arrows, breaking the enemy's spirit before the infantry arrived.
Reforms swept through the empire. A standing army was created, professional and permanent, loyal only to the crown. No river could stop them. Their engineers conquered geography itself, allowing the Assyrian war machine to strike where it was least expected. They mastered the art of the siege. Walls that had stood for centuries crumbled before their battering rams and towers. Physics and engineering were weaponized. The sound of the ram against the gate became the knell of doomed cities.
Resistance was met with calculated brutality. They cultivated a reputation for terror, so that the next city would surrender without a fight. Art became a warning. The reliefs on their palace walls told a clear story. Submission brings life, rebellion brings annihilation.
They built the first true network of imperial roads, ensuring that the king's command could reach the edges of the empire in days.
Information was power. The king knew of rebellions before they fully formed, and his armies moved faster than rumors.
Bureaucracy extended to the battlefield. Every victory was quantified, every enemy casualty recorded for the glory of Ashur.
Wealth flowed inward. The surrounding kingdoms learned that it was cheaper to pay tribute than to face the wrath of the Assyrian army.
They pushed west to the Mediterranean, their shadow stretching over the lands of the Bible, bringing ancient kingdoms to their knees. The cavalry replaced the chariot in rough terrain, giving them speed and versatility that their enemies could not match. The state provided for its soldiers. Loyalty was bought with plunder and land, creating a class of men dedicated to perpetual war.
New capitals rose from the earth. Nimrud became a testament to their power, a city built to awe the world. By the turn of the millennium, Assyria was no longer just a kingdom. It was the undisputed master of the Near East.
Nineveh, the city of cities. At its height, it was the center of the world, a marvel of architecture and engineering.
Gates of bronze and iron guarded its wealth. To enter Nineveh was to walk into the heart of absolute power.
They tamed nature itself. Aqueducts brought water from the mountains to create paradise gardens.
Lasu stood guard, half beast, half divine, protecting the king from evil spirits and intimidating any mortal who dared approach. The palace was a theater of intimidation. Every step a visitor took was designed to make them feel small before the king of the universe. The court was a place of rigid etiquette. The king of Assyria did not speak to equals. He spoke only to subjects.
The royal lion hunt was more than sport. It was a ritual. By killing the king of beasts, the Assyrian...
From the Nile to the Zagros, the world brought its treasures to Assyria. The empire consumed the wealth of nations to feed its glory. But they were not just warriors. King Ashurbanipal sought to conquer knowledge, gathering the wisdom of the world into a single library.
They preserved the past. Much of what we know of ancient Mesopotamia survives only because an Assyrian king valued the written word.
Life for the elite was opulent. They feasted while the empire's borders were guarded by the most feared army in history.
They achieved the impossible, marching across the Sinai to conquer Egypt, uniting the two great river civilizations under one rule.
They controlled the trade routes of the sea, though they were a people of the land. The wealth of the Mediterranean flowed east to the Tigris. Craftsmanship flourished. The plunder of wars was transformed into exquisite art, celebrating the beauty that power could purchase. The military remained the backbone. Even in times of peace, the shadow of the spear was never far away.
Good peoples. Assyria moved entire populations, reshaping the demographics of the Near East to suit its needs.
Mass deportation was a tool of statecraft. By uprooting nations, they broke old loyalties and forced reliance on the imperial center.
The king was the vice-regent of the god Ashur. His robes bore the symbols of the cosmos, wrapping him in divine authority.
Religion and state were one. To rebel against the king was to rebel against the order of the universe itself.
They created beauty in a harsh land, a testament to their mastery over the elements, a green jewel in a dusty crown.
Diplomacy was conducted with the weight of iron behind it. Treaties were sworn before the gods, with curses invoked for those who broke them. They studied the stars, looking for omens. The heavens were a script to be read, guiding the decisions of the empire.
The seal of the king was the ultimate law. Where it went, the will of Assyria followed.
For a time, it seemed the empire was invincible. They had defeated every enemy, conquered every capital, and silenced every doubt.
This was the zenith. The Assyrian peace, enforced by the sword, held the ancient world in a grip of iron.
But an empire built on fear must never show weakness. And the borders were growing too wide to hold. Constant warfare drained the blood of the Assyrian people. The army was exhausted, stretching its manpower to the breaking point.
Enemies learned. The iron technology that once gave Assyria the edge was now in the hands of those they sought to oppress.
Succession crises plagued the throne. Brother fought brother, and civil war spilled the precious blood of the ruling class. In the south, Babylon, the eternal rival, chafed under the Assyrian yoke, waiting for the moment to strike.
In the east, the Medes united. A new power was rising in the mountains.
Fortifications that once seemed impenetrable suffered from neglect. The treasury was empty, drained by endless campaigns.
The omens turned dark.
Nature itself seemed to turn against them. Droughts and dust storms whispered of a changing mandate from heaven.
They relied increasingly on mercenaries, men who fought for gold rather than loyalty to the god Ashur.
Bad news arrived from every corner. Rebellions were no longer isolated events. They were a synchronized fire.
The king sat on a golden throne, but the foundation was rotting. The fear they had inspired. Raiders from the north struck with impunity. The shield of the empire was full of holes.
Tribute stopped flowing. The provinces realized the giant was stumbling, and they withheld their gold. The unthinkable happened. The Assyrian army was defeated in open battle. The spell of invincibility was broken.
Old enemies joined forces. The Babylonians and the Medes forged a coalition with a single purpose: the destruction of Assyria. Heart was pierced. The holy city of Ashur fell, its temples desecrated. The psychological blow was mortal.
The world closed in on Nineveh. The hunters had become the hunted.
The final stand approached. Behind the massive walls of Nineveh, the last of the empire prepared to face the wrath of the world.
The siege of Nineveh was the judgment of history. The nations of the Near East gathered to watch the giant fall.
For 3 months, the walls held. But the hatred of their enemies was a fuel that would not burn out.
Floods weakened the defenses. The very river that had sustained the city now betrayed it, undermining the great gates.
Walls were breached. The roar of battle drowned out the prayers to Ashur. The end had come.
The palaces of Sennacherib and Ashurbanipal, filled with the plunder of centuries, became a funeral pyre. The smoke of Nineveh rose like a dark monument. The city that had terrified the world was being erased from the earth.
Vengeance was absolute. They did not just want to defeat Assyria. They wanted to obliterate its memory.
A silence fell. The shouting ceased. The empire of iron had ended in fire and blood.
The desert reclaimed the city. Within generations, the location of the greatest capital on earth was forgotten. 200 years later, when armies marched past, they saw only mounds of earth. They did not know that Nineveh lay beneath, but the clay survived. While the gold was stolen and the silk burned, the library of Ashurbanipal waited in the dark.
Empires rose and fell: Babylon, Persia, Greece, Rome. Assyria remained a legend, a warning in the sacred texts.
Until the sands were brushed away, the winged bulls emerged once more, staring out at a modern world with ancient eyes. Art, the cruelty, and the majesty were revealed. The world remembered the first true empire.
The voices of the scribes spoke again. They told of kings, of floods, of gods, and of the daily life of a vanished people.
Their brutality is remembered, but so is their innovation. They built the structures of administration that empires use to this day.
The river still flows. The landscape remembers the iron boots that once marched across it. They taught the world how to rule, how to fight, and how to record history. A legacy forged in iron. The sun sets on all empires. But the shadow of Assyria stretches long across the history of mankind.
For in the end, stone and story are all that remain.